Hello everybody and welcome to this shortish video podcast all about the topic of citing and referencing. My name is Jamie McIntyre and over the next 20 minutes or so I'd like to take a quick look at plagiarism so that everybody understands plagiarism. We're going to talk about why do we need to reference, when do we need to reference, and the main part of the session is going to be talking about how do we do it, how do we reference using a particular system called the Harvard Referencing System. Okay, so on with it. What is plagiarism? Plagiarism is when you use someone else's work or ideas and fail to give credit. It's a specific form of cheating, and it's not acceptable in any academic setting, but it also extends to the world of work. Some of the biggest court cases that are happening in the world just now, for example, between Apple and Samsung, are basically plagiarism court cases. One company saying that they've copied another. Some examples of plagiarism would be if you were to use an idea that you've heard or read from someone else and you put it into your essay or your project and you try and pass it off as your own work. That's plagiarism. If you copy chunks of text from a book, a journal, a web page or a TV script or something without crediting the original source, that's plagiarism. Copying and pasting text or images from the internet without crediting the original source. Copying another student's work without crediting the original source. You can see here that there's a common theme, isn't there? I keep saying without crediting the original source. If you are to credit the original source, then you can actually get around plagiarism. So you've got to say where you've taken that information from. Okay, now, at university and at college, you are 100% expected to go and seek out the work of people who are classed as experts in that field. And you are here to learn, so you take those ideas and you pop them into your essays. That's 100% expected of you. When you do that, you have to acknowledge the source of all the information that you've used. And the process of acknowledging the work of others is called referencing. So it's 100% expected that you go and read the work of other people, and that your lecturer should see that coming through loud and clear in your essays, your projects. And when you do it, you've got to say where it's come from. And the basic idea of referencing, all we're trying to achieve here, is to give the person reading your work all the information that they would need to go and find that information for themselves. So it's pretty straightforward when you put it like that. And the system that we use is called the Harvard system. I'm going to talk about that in a second. Let's go back a wee second and say, why do we need to reference? Well, it helps you avoid plagiarism because you're giving credit where credit's due. More importantly, though, it allows the reader to see the source of your information. And by that, what I mean is, what your lecturer will be looking for is the question, has this person just gone to Wikipedia or taken the first 5 Google hits that they found? Or has this person consulted web pages, books, journal articles, TV programs, podcasts, TED Talks that have all been produced by people who are experts? It's your chance to show the depth and the width of your reading, the quality of the work that you've done. It's also your chance to show that you've used up-to-date materials, and this is particularly a problem when it comes to using the web, because the web is 27 years old, and when you do a Google search, there isn't some other wee guy at the end of that process going, well, that's out-of-date information, so we're going to take that off of there, and that's in-date information, so we're going to make sure that goes to the Heriot-Watt student or the Borders College student. There is no quality control with these things, so it's important that you show that you've been discerning, that you've actually looked at when this was produced and you've decided that it's up to date or not. And it's about academic integrity as well. The more that you reference, the more weight it gives your work, the more plausible, the more convincing your works will sound, and the more convinced your lecturer will be that you've put in a lot of effort. So that's why we need to reference. What about when? Well, anytime we use someone else's idea in our work. So even if it's just somebody else's idea, we've got to do it. Even if you paraphrase it, which is where you jumble it up into your own words, you still have to reference the idea. If you lift the text directly from the web page or the magazine article that you've been using and you put it into your work, you need to put it into little quotation marks and you need to reference it. anytime you include statistical information in your work, and anytime you use an image, a graph, a chart to illustrate the point that you're making. So now we're going to talk about how do we reference, and this is the main bit of the session. Just to start by saying that there are actually thousands of systems out there for referencing. The one that we use in the School of Textiles and Design is the Harvard referencing system. That's used at lots of colleges like Borders College, Glasgow College, and lots of universities. And it is a common system, but sometimes it might feel like lecturers have their own variations. Now, I'm going to tell you what's expected as in terms of the Harvard system as it's laid out today. And I would just urge you to be consistent. But if the lecturer tells you to do something in a particular way, my advice to you is follow what they say. Don't listen to Jamie. Jamie is not marking your work. Your lecturer will be marking your work, so you do as they've told you. But hopefully if you follow the instructions that you get through this session, then you can't go too far wrong and it should be accepted. Okay. So let's think about how we do this thing called referencing. So first of all, it's important to note that referencing happens in two places in your work. First of all, it happens in the body of your work, where we do a little thing called an in-text citation, and it happens at the end of your work, where we do a bigger thing called a reference list. For an in-text citation, it's just a short form of the reference. Normally, it's just the author's second name and year of publication. It should look a little something like this. McIntyre 2012 with a comma, space and brackets around it. And it might be quite helpful just to think of these little citations as signposts that point your reader to the full details that go in your reference list at the end. So you finish this wonderful essay you've been writing, take a new page and put reference list at the top of the page, and then provide your reader with all the details that they will need to go and find that source for themselves. So it's the full details, and it's just one list. One list. It's not split up into websites, journals, books. It's one list, and that list is arranged alphabetically. That is, so if I see McIntyre in the body of your work, I can flick to your reference list at the end, look up M for McIntyre, and find whatever source that was. Okay. Thinking about our in-text citations, so these little signposts that we have. Remember, we just want minimal details. Something like this. Occasionally you might see something like this though. Now that's a P21 means page 21. And the only time we include page numbers in the body of our text, I'll repeat that because people get confused here. The only time we include page numbers in the body of our text is if it's a quote from a book. Just for quotes from a book. No other page numbers are needed in the body of the text. Now, a lot of the stuff that you read will be by several authors. And what do we do there? Well, we want to keep our signpost nice and short. So if it's two authors, we put McIntyre and Smith, 2012. Easy. If it's three authors, we would do something like this. McIntyre, Smith and Johnston, 2012. If we get to 4 or more authors, then our signpost is starting to get a bit long. And what we want to do is keep that signpost nice and short so that it doesn't get in the way of what we're actually trying to write. Remember, what you're writing here is far more important than how you're referencing it. So we need a little trick up our sleeves here, and the little trick we have is to use the first author's second name and then the words et al, E-T-A-L. Et al is Latin for and others, and we use it as a shorthand way of saying that there was other authors. So this is for 4 or more authors. I know that says 3 there, so we use et al when 3 or more authors, but actually Harvard updated their system last year and it's now 4 or more authors. Okay, fantastic. And quite often I see people putting in what we call web addresses into the body of their text. So you see www.bbc.co.uk/articles/5 *, and all these bits and bobs in code. Now, the URL, the Uniform Resource Locator, which is a fancy name for the web address, It is very important, because remember, we're just trying to direct our reader to where they'll find the information for themselves, but it doesn't go in the body of the text. It's too long and it's too ugly to go into the body of our text. We save it for the reference list at the end. So remember, do not include full web addresses in the citation. Okay. So the 3 types of sources that you'll be using most will be books, magazines, and web pages. Okay, fab. So for books, you use the author's second name and the year. We've kind of covered that. For journal articles, now journal articles are just academic magazine articles. You use the name and the year. And it's the same for web pages. You use the name and the year. But here's a problem. How often do you go to a web page and it tells you exactly who's written it? I would say 7 or 8 times out of 10 there is no name attached to that web page. Similarly, quite often there's no date attached to that web page either. Well, that's a bit of a problem for us, isn't it? What do? Okay, so where there's no... Well, let me put this up first of all. So normally you would say the name or the organisation and the year. If there is no date available, put the words no date. So it could be McIntyre, no date. What do you do if you can't find the name of the author? Well, as it says there, you go to the next best thing, which is the name of the organisation. So you have to put the name of something, the name of a person or the name of an organisation. Now, don't stress over these details too much. Look at the top of the web page, look at the bottom, look at the left, look at the right, and see if you can find the name and the date. If they're not there, then use these little tricks that I've just shown you. If you can't find the name of the organisation, use something else, because you really have to be able to say where you've taken your information from. Okay, hope that's clear so far. Here's an example of how to build it into your sentences. As Phipps argues in our latest work, and there's a quote, and it's from Phipps 2011. As soon as your lecturer sees that, they know that they'll be able to look at your reference list at the back and find Phipps from 2011. Same with the next one. I agree with McIntyre's theory of citing and referencing, McIntyre 2017. And according to Phipps, citing and referencing gets easier with practice. That's a quote from a book. So I've got Sanderson et al. So there was clearly 4 or more authors there. The year of publication, and then the page number, because it's a quote from a book. Now, this is just a little stylistic thing, but I'm going to just come out of my presentation for a second. You see here how I've got as Phipps argues in our latest work. Well, and then I've got my little citation at the end here. Well, there's a little trick I can do. I can take that away, goodbye, and I can add it in here. So it makes my signpost even shorter and more concise. Now, as Phipps 2011 argues in her latest work. Fantastic. So my signpost is really nice and short. Same here. I agree with McIntyre's theory of citing and referencing. Well, rather than repeating McIntyre at the end, why not just build it into my sentence just here? Fabulous. Excellent. So we're keeping our signpost nice and short. Now I can't do it here because it's Phipps is the quote, but Sanderson is the first author's second name. So I need to do the full thing there. So that's just a little stylistic tip. Both ways are absolutely fine. I mean, if you added the Phipps 2011 at the end, it's great. And if you're in doubt, always err on the side of doing more referencing than less referencing. But this is good. Okay, let me just jump back into my slides here. And now we're going to talk about how to build that reference list. So let's get on to that. So you finish your work, as I said, you take a new page and you put reference list at the top of the page. Awesome. And a reference list gives more details about the citations. Referencing books, here's the details that you need. Now I'm just going to fly through these, so don't worry about copying them down or anything. You need to include the author's editors. Now, if a book is edited by someone, you go with the editor. If the book has been authored by people, you go with the author. Okay? Year of publication, the title, the edition. Now, if the book is the first edition, you don't need to worry about it. If it's the second, third, fourth edition, then you need to mention it in here. How do you know? It tells you on the front cover. If it doesn't mention anything on the front cover of the book, then don't worry about it. If it says 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 4th edition, then stick it in here. Place of publication and publisher. The place, the publisher, and the date, the year of publication are all in the inside cover of the book. Or you might also be able to get those details from Discovery, or if you jump on Duan's Amazon search, you'll get some of the details there. Okay. Now we don't lay it out like this because this would be crazy. It would make your reference list pages and pages long. So what we do instead is we keep it nice and concise. And here we are. Now you can see my example here. We've got McIntyre J. So it's McIntyre, comma, and the first initial. So unlike in the body of our text where we just use the author's second name, in our reference list at the end we've got to put the first initial. Year of publication. The title, which you can see here I've put in italics, but actually it should go in italics, bold, or underline. You can choose which you prefer. Place of publication, which is Galashiels, and the publisher was Tweed Publishing. People get hung up about the place of publication because, what do you put? Because it says printed in China, but published in San Jose, California. The place of publication is California. Always go with the address of the publisher rather than the place the book was printed. You put California, you just give the rough geographic location. So if it says it was published in Edmonton, London, you just give London. And then the publisher information as well. Please note the punctuation there. So I've got a full stop after my title. I've got my full colon between place and publisher, and then I've got my full stop after publisher. I've also got McIntyre, comma, J, and full stop. Okay, these are the kind of things that a really pedantic lecturer would pick you up on, and I have seen it in the past. For academic magazines that you've been using, it's the same ideas. You need the first name, you need the author's second name to start with, comma, and then the first initial. Then the year it goes in brackets, and then it's the article title. The article title, which goes in italics, bold, or underline. Again, choose one and stick with it. Then it's the journal title. And then what's this? Volume 163, issue 6. What's a volume and an issue? Some academic magazines have been going on so long that they end up with a volume number and an issue number. Some, like Vogue or Elle magazine, would just give you September 2018. Whatever details you can get, you put the details in there. This bit at the end, PP 421 to 462, these are the page numbers of the article. So the article was only on 421 to 462, but the actual journal I was looking at was 1,000 pages long. And that's very important that you include those page numbers. Now, one thing we haven't talked about so far is, what if it's like an electronic article, like we've got it through Discovery and we've found it and it's just been online? It's exactly the same whether you've had it in print or online, except for one small detail. If it's an online article, it will normally have what's called a DOI, which is a unique number and it acts as a kind of link. So you would just copy and paste the DOI for the article and just pop it in at the end of the reference here. Okay, so that's the DOI, which you will find either inside an article at the very top. Sometimes it's on the holding page of the supplier as well. So you're just looking for DOI and then a code number. And you just pop that in there in your reference. What if I used an ebook? Is it the same as a book? Absolutely. There's no difference when it comes to referencing an ebook and a print book. Again, what about web pages? We use a lot of web pages. A couple of things to think about. Always include the full URL, or that's the fancy name for web address again, no matter how long it is. So if you look at my example at the bottom, you'll see it's the full URL to the page that I was using. It's not taking my reader to the home page, it's the page that I was on. And second tip, always remember to include the date that you last accessed that web page. So that goes in rounded brackets at the end here. So I've got my, I couldn't find the name of the author here, so I went for the next best thing, which is the organisation that's produced it. So it's NHS Scotland. There was no date on the article, but I managed to just put in the words no date. This article had a title that I found online, and it was Diabetes in Scotland, my full URL, and then the date last accessed. Now sometimes Diabetes in Scotland, so sometimes it doesn't have an article title. It just launches straight into the text and there's no title there. If that happens, don't worry about it, just leave it blank. As long as it looks like this, as long as you have the name of the organisation or the name of a person who's written it, and the date that it was produced, and the date that you were last on it, and the URL to get into it. Some people find links kind of ugly on the page, and I'm one of those people, but leave it blue and underlined. Don't go through it and reformat it. Remember, the idea is just to give your lecturer the easiest way to find that, so the easiest way is to leave it as a link. Now here's a tricky thing that we call secondary referencing. Secondary referencing, the best way to describe it is reading a book that's been written by Jenny Phipps in 2009, but Jenny Phipps quotes MacIntyre, who wrote their book in 2003. Who do you reference? Do you reference MacIntyre because it's his book, or do you reference reference MacIntyre because it's his words, or do you reference Jenny Phipps because it's from her book? And the golden rule is you can only reference something that you've actually read. So you have to reference, in this case, Phipps. But here's a few ideas about how to build secondary referencing in. Secondary referencing is really good because it shows that you're aware of more experts in your field. And when it comes to writing essays, please make sure you include as many experts as you can. Here's a few examples. You could say Phipps, 2009, cites the work of MacIntyre, who concluded that XYZ. Or Phipps, and put it all in brackets, 2009, citing MacIntyre. Or if MacIntyre was like one of the big names of your subject, you might want to put them at the start of the sentence. So you'd say MacIntyre, and then in your brackets, as cited in Phipps 2009, says that, blah blah blah. And Phipps 2009 quotes MacIntyre to back up his argument that. Yep, absolutely. So you can see the key phrases here are cites the work of, or citing, or as cited in, or quotes. So try and get these words in. It is always a good idea to reference the original work, but you know what? This is the real world. We all have deadlines to meet, so it's important that you know how to do secondary referencing to get around that. I'm not going to do the challenges with you, but what I am going to say is I'm going to flick through these slides here. And I will ask you, when do we use page numbers? In the body of our text if it's a quote from a book, and in our reference list at the end if it's a magazine article, we have to give the page numbers of that article. What do you do if you've got lots of authors? Well, if you've got 3 authors, you just put all their names in the body of the text. If you've got 4 or more authors, you need to use the first author's second name, et al. Unfortunately for you guys, when you do the reference list at the end, you have to include all of the author's second names. Et al. Doesn't work at the end in the reference list. So use all of the author's second names, and remember to use the first initials in the reference list, but just the second name in the body of the text. When do we need to reference? All the bloody time should be your answer. Should you reference the editor or author of a chapter that you've read? Well, remember I said editor always trumps author. So if a book is edited by someone, that's who you go with. But if the book is just authored by someone, that's who you go with for that case. How do you know the difference? Well, it'll say on the book whether it was edited by someone or not. Where do you go for help? Well, the number one thing is that you are not expected to be experts in referencing by watching a little video made by a librarian. No, not at all. You can come and see me for help. I'm happy to meet with you. And here is my email address and my telephone number. And all you should do is just email me and make an appointment with me, and we'll sit down and we'll get it nailed. No problem at all. If you're having problems, you can come and see me before you hand something in. That's always a good idea. Or you can also come and see me after you've had work handed back to you with maybe comments about the referencing not being up to scratch. Calling into the library is a good idea, but you know, if you want my full attention, please make an appointment and I'll give you my full concentration. Make life easier as you go along, so note down sources as you use them. Keep a note of the page numbers for any quotes. Use a table to kind of keep the key details that you'll need and record them as you go along. That's key, and it stops you having to run back and find the details once you finish the actual writing up. So that's it from me just now, folks. Thank you very much for listening and getting all this way to the end. I hope that's been helpful. Do come and see me if you're having any trouble, and I'll hopefully see you all very soon. Thanks now. Bye-bye.